This is Human Warnings. This will be a ramble, and if you don't like the deep end, then go back to the shallow end. What are plot holes? So in this video, I'm going to try to figure out what plot holes are. Is it the size of the plot holes that matter? Is it the number of plot holes that matter in terms of a good story? Because every story will have plot holes. I am doing this in order to help myself in my pursuit of finishing a story I'm writing. Now, this is not to say that my previous stories have not been good or even great, but I come across this problem every single time, and I'm never finished with my understanding of how to write and what the most perfect story is. I will never be finished in that pursuit. Even if I wrote Hamlet, I would still be seeking in my next book to write something even better and try to find ways to improve the speed in which I finish and write the book, and the quality. I think that one of the problems I'm running into is that I've got I've got more than 3 main characters in this story, and I've never really had this problem before because my previous stories were always told in the first person, and I've never had more than maybe even 1 main character, maybe 2. And also, this is more the kind of story where it takes place in various settings, whereas my previous ones were always in, settings that were like right next door to each other. This is like different countries and shit like that. So the big plot hole that I'm running into is, how do these characters end up meeting each other here or there? And I'll give some examples from popular movies. Well, the main examples that come to mind are the J.J. Abrams movies, where Kirk meets old Spock extremely coincidentally. I mean, just running into somebody randomly in the whole galaxy is extremely unlikely. It's enough of a coincidence to run into somebody who lives on the same block as you, but to run into somebody randomly in the entire galaxy is crazy. And I think it's a little sloppy. Or in Star Wars, how they just happen to sort of run into Han Solo. They don't exactly happen to, or they happen to run into the Millennium Falcon, or Finn happens to meet Rey, or Finn happens to meet Poe. All these things are really, and often they run into each other for reasons that the plot just needed for no reason. And Game of Thrones might be a similar example. People just running into each other randomly. So I want to find some solutions to that, and I doubt I'll find them in this video, but I might get closer to that. Another problem is, why do characters suddenly make their decisions, their big decisions, at the moment that they do? Often it's just random, but it shouldn't be. Luke goes off to join the rebellion because his aunt and uncle died, and because he met Obi-Wan Kenobi, who told him to. In the Avengers, they all do the things that they do because, I don't know, they feel guilty about things. But I guess I'm afraid and in danger of having characters that just do things all of a sudden. So I'm going to look into that, and I'm going to watch some YouTube videos on this subject and see if they shed any light, and I'm going to comment as I go through them, starting now. I have 2 suspicions. First, that these videos will shed no light because most writers don't have any of these answers. And one of the reasons for this is because they don't have ambitious stories, whereas I do. And anyways, and then the other thing is that I suspect that plot holes will be naturally solved as you write. Just like there's always going to be problems, like Ernest Hemingway said that the first draft of anything is shit. So the plot holes, you will be able to find the solutions as you write anyways. I think every book, Stephen King, anybody who's considered to be good, even though I don't think Stephen King's good, will encounter these plot holes, but they'll find the solution as they go naturally. I think the only way you fail and have terrible plot holes when you're somebody like Ryan is when you're somebody like Ryan Johnson or Stephen King, because you just say that's good enough. Who gives a shit? But if you put the thought in, there's always a solution there. I think it only takes patience and hard work. There's no magical solution to plot holes. In fact, I think the best stories initially have the biggest plot holes when somebody's writing them. Okay, so I'm only 2 minutes into one video and I'm already realizing that plot holes cover an enormous range of things. It's basically any inconsistency at all. So it could be a million things. Okay, so the first video says tip number 1, edit with objectivity. Step away and, and personally, I go over it like 1,000 times. So I guess I've succeeded in that regard. So I'll be fine with that. I go over it so many times that I despise the thing by the time I'm done. Okay, I changed my mind. I had a feeling I wouldn't be able to watch these. This is just writing 101 shit. A friend of mine took a writing course once and I said, why would you do that? That's the stupidest thing you could ever do. And, he came back to me a week later and he's like, you were right, it's the stupidest thing I could ever do. They're teaching writing for dummies. They're not teaching advanced writing, and I don't think it's possible to teach advanced writing. You can't teach how to write Hamlet. And I guess that's what I was looking for, and that was my mistake. In fact, the best writing tips I've got were from people who have actually written really great stuff. Not always, though. Some people who are great writers are terrible teachers. But Vince Gilligan said something that was really, I thought, profound. He said, they asked him about how he deals with coincidences when writing. And he said, coincidences are good when they're bad for the character, for the main character. And they're bad when they're good for the main character. So if the main character wins the lottery, that's terrible. A terrible coincidence. But if he gets cancer, that's wonderful. Yeah, so I guess that's it. You just can't give advice on plot holes. It's your job to solve them, and nobody can tell you how to do it. Anybody who was reading Vince Gilligan's pitch for Breaking Bad would have said it was a terrible idea. Anything that's really good, people will initially probably think it's terrible because all the decisions are counterintuitive. Even the plot holes are ridiculous, and everybody would say, you can't do that. You can't write like that. So you just got to persevere and ignore and just believe in your thing. And, but I was hoping to find answers here that I could share. But I don't always have answers, and that's why my channel is better than most people's channels, because I admit that I don't have the answers. And so after my extra, I'm going to continue. I'll add any additional thoughts on these videos. I might watch a little bit more. I don't know yet, so we'll see. I don't have the time or energy to edit my videos. I do them as they go, and my program is so Neanderthal that it doesn't offer the ability to do it easily. If you like gays, click like. If you like blacks, comment. If you like women, click notification bell. If you like gay women, subscribe. And if you like gay black women, Patreon, human warnings, give me money. Yeah, so I don't know if I have anything good to say, but I'm going to watch these videos and say what comes to mind. The picture on the screen is just a shameless plug for my the movie I made, the most famous celebrity of all time. Because if I'm just going to put Black Panther, why should I be giving so much publicity to a terrible movie? I thought it was irony, but at this point it's just redundant. Big problem with these writing courses on YouTube, whatever, is they talk to you like you're an idiot, like you're a child. And they're constantly plugging their larger thing. They wasted like at least half of the... anyways. Oh, this is great. So tip 2 is draft with intention. So that means like figure out the shit beforehand, before you start writing. Figure out what the story is. Oh, so pre-production. Never heard of that. And then tip 3 is examine your plot. Wow, that's crazy. Never thought of that one. So I'm done with this first video because it's unbelievably infantile and she talks to you like you're in grade 1. Okay, so the next video, not very good, but he lists some big plot holes and famous plot holes. The illegal kick in Karate Kid, the eagles flying, why couldn't they just fly the ring to Mordor? And this hits on something I've been thinking about, which is the question, is it a plot hole if they're just not giving information? For example, there is a reason in the books, in the Lord of the Rings books, why the eagles can't just fly the ring to Mordor. So it's and same with the Karate Kid, the illegal kick that could be explained. So is it a plot hole, or is it just a plot like they didn't give enough information? But again, I just think plot holes cover everything. So yeah, that's a plot hole just because it wasn't explained. Like, also I'm thinking, The Dark Knight Rises, how did Batman make it back to Gotham if all the bridges were destroyed? But that could be, how did he make it all the way back to the States from that country within the hole, right? But that could be explained somehow with information. He had some access to a plane or whatever, right? So it's a plot hole. And every plot hole can be explained with more explanation and more. You could just say time travel, for example. That could solve any plot hole, perhaps. And you know what? I think I found the answer. The answer is, do the plot holes bother you as the writer of your story? Because essentially a writer has to write for themselves, because they can't constantly be second guessing and thinking, will my audience like this? Because you don't know what other people think. We never would have had some of the greatest movies like Terminator 2 if James Cameron had thought about it, like, are people going to be upset about this enormous plot hole that like a second Terminator is being sent back now? As of all, like, why not just send it back again? Where there's so many problems with that. You can't. It didn't bother James Cameron enough for him to not make the movie. He knew, he must have known it was a plot hole, but it didn't bug him enough. He liked the story, so it's not a question of whether there's plot holes. It's a question of, do the plot holes bother you as a writer, or are you willing to let that go? Well, it just occurred to me something I realized a few years ago, maybe even 8 years ago. Because 8 years feels like a few years. I would be 80% done the whole thing, the whole book, and I would think, oh, wait a second, this plot hole over here, this problem is going to ruin the whole thing. The whole thing is shit now because of this little problem, well, which is a big problem, this enormous plot hole. I guess to call it a plot hole. I never thought of it like that. Over here, this thing ruins it all. And I would get upset and think, well, so now the whole thing's a piece of shit. Like, I'm screwed. I might as well throw the thing in the garbage. But what I found, and now believe, is that all you have to do is tweak something else, and the other thing won't be a plot hole anymore. And I had the image in my head of scales where they're unbalanced, and all you have to do is, take one little stone off of one end of the scale and put it on the other end, and all of a sudden it's balanced. Unfortunately, I can't think of any examples because it's a long time ago. I don't remember where the idea came from, and because I assume that it was a type of plot hole. I mean, I suppose a really crude example would just be, why is he so vengeful now if he was never vengeful previously? And all you have to do is just go to the beginning and say he wanted revenge. Put a little sentence in there, and the whole thing's solved. Off subject, watching these videos. Watching any YouTube videos, it blows my mind when people have tons of followers, when they've got an ugly voice. I know I have an amazing voice, and they're cheesy and arrogant as hell, and I'm just like, how the hell is it that these people have subscribers? And I think, like everything else, it was largely an incredible coincidence. They just did the right videos at the right time. Also, as time goes on with YouTube, it's going to be harder and harder, because that's just how things are headed. The new voices will get fewer and fewer, and the older voices will get louder and louder. You know how it's like 40 years ago, you could open your own company, your own business, and you could actually stand a great chance of success, and could buy a house and all that. Now that's impossible. And YouTube was kind of like one of the last places one of the modern places where you could actually stand a chance at, succeeding if you created quality. But now I think that's over, and maybe YouTube's coming to an end, and soon a new independent channel will take over. But back to the plot. I have a couple more thoughts on plot holes, I think. This is off topic as well, but the new video I'm watching about plot holes, for some reason, he's bringing up the idea of what do you do if you've got a great protagonist, but not a great villain. And it's like, his answer was ridiculous. It was just he didn't even have an answer. But you don't need a villain at all. That's the thing. The reason that I don't have this problem is that my writing is idea driven, not character driven. First of all, so I don't even need characters. Well, you do need characters, but they don't have to have an arc. They don't have to have anything. It just has to propel the story. The story can be propelled with ideas. An idea can be the antagonist, is what I'm saying. You can have a main character where the idea is the antagonist. Two examples that come to mind are Metamorphosis by Kafka and 1984 by Orwell. One thought I've been having about my experience with my plot holes in my previous stories was that most of my plot holes could be solved with a few sentences of expositions here or there at the very beginning. I avoid blunt exposition, like something like the intro credits, the intro scroll of Star Wars, because I always think it's cheap, and I always aim for a higher way of giving exposition. But sometimes it's just impossible, or it's not impossible, but I just can't find a way of doing it. Or in order to find it, it would take me 10 years, and I'm not willing to spend 10 years on one story. Anyways, I'm going to end this here, otherwise I could just talk forever.